Hi, I'm Arati. Today we're going to explore this mini Urban Sketches watercolor set by Szmal. It's really lovely and I have enjoyed using it over the past couple of months. I will also show you the little sketchbook that I took to Corfu and in which I did drawings with this watercolor set. I will mark timestamps down in the description box below, as well as links for everything that I'm talking about in this video. I first saw this kit on YouTube and Instagram and definitely was influenced because I am not a watercolor artist. I've been using the Cotman set for quite a long time, but decided it was time to upgrade to professional level watercolors. This set comes with 8 different watercolors in it by Szmal. The colors are Nickel Azo Gold, Aquarius Orange, Quinacridone Red, French Ultramarine, Cobalt Sea Blue, Autumn Green, Shadow Violet, and Burnt Sienna Brownish. There are also 4 empty slots into which I personally have popped White, Windsor Lemon, Quinacridone Magenta, and Black in case I need any mixing colors. But as you'll see through the course of this video, I hardly ever used any of these colors. There's also plenty of space in these to mix your colors. As you can see, I've done that quite messily. Because it's watercolor, it's easy enough to add a little wash of water and then move the colors over so you have space to mix again. To get the best out of these watercolors, you should use them on watercolor paper. But as I'll show you in this Corfu sketchbook, I did use them on regular cartridge drawing paper and it turned out perfectly well. I also did get another little one, which I'll show you at the end of this video. My main motivation for getting the Szmal colors in this box is that it's really small and convenient for travel. I could have bought them individually and I will link those for you down below, but I prefer this format and the way that they've packaged it. It's really nice, very handy to use. The only thing you do have to be a little careful of is that this pan falls out if you're not too careful. I haven't figured out a way of bending these a little further so that they stick in like normal palettes do, but it's not too bad. I mean, it won't fall out casually and you can always stick a little magnet under there if you need to. All of the rest of the pans are extremely secure. You can fit 4 half pans in each or 2 full pans if you're changing these out. Now let's get to swatching all of the colors. And then because it's a limited palette, we'll do a little bit of mixing to see all of the colors that I can get with just these 8. I'm not even going to use the colors that I added into this palette. So let's swatch all of the paints. I'm going to use this Etcher A6 100% cotton watercolor sketchbook. It's been highly recommended and I've been looking forward to trying it. I'm going to use this magnetic clip that was recommended by Roisin Cure to clip my paper and attach my little watercolor palette to it as I would if I was drawing plein air. Let's start with 380 Nickel Azo Gold. Beautiful, lovely golden color. It applies so beautifully and it wets really well. I feel like if I were to apply this thickly, it would be almost gouache. 354 Aquarius Orange. I am really obsessed with orange lately, and this is the color that actually made me want to buy the entire palette. I will use all of the colors, but this one in particular is something special. 331 Quinacridone Magenta, a great mixing color. If I mix this and the Nickel Azo Gold, I will get a nice red. 221 French Ultramarine, classic color, can't go wrong with this. Again, a great mixing color. 414 Cobalt Sea Blue. This is one of my all-time favorite colors. I have a version of it in my gouache palette as well. 363 Autumn Green. This is slightly granulating and it kind of separates into greens and yellows. It's a beautiful color and in combination with the orange, I think I'll get a lot of use out of this. 336 Shadow Violet. Excellent color for Urban Sketches palettes. I would use this first before I added any color. 139 Burnt Sienna Brownish is the only color I would be unlikely to use on its own. However, in combination with the French Ultramarine, you can create some really beautiful combinations. You'll see that when I do a little bit of mixing later on. So here we are, all 8 colors. A great palette. And as it says, it is specifically for urban sketching, although you can pretty much use it for anything. Here's what the colors look like dry. I also swatched all of the colors in this lovely Odd Orange sketchbook. It does not have watercolor paper. It has what I would call Bristol paper, but it behaves like hot press watercolor paper. So you can see here that the colors come out just as beautifully as the etcher. So here they are both in comparison. There's a slight texture to the etcher paper, so you will find that in the watercolors as well, whereas this is more smooth. I'm more likely to use them more on smooth paper, so that's why I swatched them on both. Now, let's get mixing. A limited palette like this can create a lot of different colors. Generally, when I make palettes for myself, I try not to include too many colors because then there's firstly too much choice, and secondly, you can get a little bit confused in terms of what colors to use, and therefore your painting can start to look a bit disjointed. So the point of mixing colors is to have a cohesive look to your entire painting. So let's start with Shadow Violet and Ultramarine Blue. Mixing them gives you a darker shade. Ultramarine Blue and the Cobalt Sea Blue will give you a slightly lighter shade than the previous one. Cobalt Sea Blue mixed with the Autumn Green gives you a slightly more bluish green, a cooler green. Autumn Green mixed with Azo Nickel Gold will give you a greenish yellow. Azo Nickel Gold mixed with Aquarius Orange will give you a slightly more yellowish orange, less cool. Aquarius Orange mixed with Quinacridone Magenta will give you a reddish color. Quinacridone Magenta mixed with Burnt Sienna Brownish will give you a more madder tone, a dark madder. Burnt Sienna Brownish mixed with Shadow Violet gives you a darker kind of sepia brown. Then if you skip colors and you mix and you add certain combinations, as I've done here, you will get even more combinations. It's an infinite number of combinations that you can make with just this palette. You can also mix in different further combinations. At the third line on this page is the Shadow Violet and the Cobalt Sea Blue will give you this color. The Ultramarine and the Green will give you that, and so on. I'm doing alternate colors in this row. So as you can see, you can get so many combinations with just these 8 colors. You don't need all of them. You don't need to buy every single color that comes out. Just get ones that mix well for you, and they've already selected 8 of those in this palette. In this combination, I am not even using those additional 4 colors that I added to my palette. Those are just in case I find I'm missing something and I need to add those. I bought this palette the week of my open studios, so while I was sitting at open studios, I was fiddling about with them and experimenting and drawing. So I didn't go straight into my Corfu trip with a brand new set of colors. I already knew a little bit about what they could do. So let me show you some of the drawings that I made with these watercolors. The first, of course, was this little dog. I used a Fude pen colored in. As you can see here, like I said, I did the Shadow Violet first as the shadows and then added color over the top. Then while I was at the open studios, I drew my fellow artist Suzanne, her dog, some of the print racks. I somehow got the proportions wrong and I couldn't figure out what it was. I did eventually in this pencil drawing, but yeah, while I was painting it, it didn't quite turn out right. I did, however, enjoy myself drawing dogs. This was Suzanne's dog Kai. He's such a cutie, so I did pen drawings and then colored in with watercolor, which is mostly what I would use this watercolor set for, especially when going urban sketching. Here's another page, and then one day I brought my dog along, Sam, and he was lying with Kai as well. The other thing that I would use this set for is little studies like this prior to making a full-size painting. So I've currently been obsessed with dogs in woods and wooden walkies, and it's a very dear subject to me because it's one of my favorite things to do. So I worked out a few different things here, and then I had the time to do a full-blown study of a potential acrylic or gouache painting. I really like the way these watercolors work. They're vibrant, but you can also get subtle tones with them. They work so well on this Bristol paper. It works, like I said, like hot press watercolor paper, and I was very, very pleased with it. The color also lifts really easily, so if I make a mistake, I can remove the color a little bit. I also did some sketches in the little etcher sketchbook while I was in Corfu, but only 1 or 2. Here are a couple of them. I used a Neocolor 1 to create the resist over here, and then painted watercolors over the top. Again, pen drawings with watercolor paint. And then this full-blown scene with pencil over the top. I'm looking forward to using this sketchbook more with these, but that's all I did in these. Last night in the Odd Orange session, we were drawing tradespeople, so I used my pen and watercolor technique again. These were all timed sketches, so really quick drawings and just a little bit of watercolor to add in to create an interesting illustration. The second page was this ice cream seller, a cobbler, and somebody drawing. I kind of got the proportions on this rug in comparison to this guy. He should have been a bit smaller, but it worked out in the end. And the final page, fruit sellers and a potter. I always try and combine things on a page so that they look a bit more cohesive rather than having separate drawings. Now, let me show you the entire Corfu sketchbook. We had a very early morning flight, so we went to the airport, which is about 45 minutes away from London, and spent the night at the airport hotel. So I spent a little time creating some backgrounds for my empty white pages because I knew that I'd be spending time with friends and family and I wouldn't have as much time to draw. So the plan was to draw a pencil or a pen sketch over the top of these prepared pages and then fill in the color later if I wanted to. In my downtime, in the evenings, just before bed, that kind of thing. So the cover of the sketchbook I decorated with me swimming, which is what we did a lot of in the lovely Ionian Sea. And I managed to fill the entire sketchbook except for page 1. I'm not sure what I will do here, but maybe I will use all of the colors in one sketch and see how that works out. I'm not sure how that'll go, but we'll see how it does. And I will share it with you when that happens, probably in my behind the scenes email list. If you're not on there, do sign up. I have just finished doing my taxes, so I will be doing a breakdown of where my income comes from. Not exact numbers because privacy reasons, but percentages of where my income comes from as a book designer, as a freelance book designer and an artist. And I do both those things full time. Anyway, so let's get back to the sketchbook tour. Blank first page, but you can see here the kind of backgrounds that I made in order to banish the fear of the white page and to have some interest behind the sketches if I chose to just leave them as pen sketches and not fill them in. The first one was really rusty. It was at Luton Airport looking out of the window of our hotel at the actual airport itself, lots of EasyJet flights. I'm not particularly pleased with this because I hadn't drawn for weeks because my in-laws were here and then my parents were here and I just didn't have time to draw. So I'm a bit rusty, my lines are not straight, they're a bit wonky, my perspective is off. Overall, not very pleased with this drawing. But, oh well, you can't be pleased with all of them, and it's only through practice and drawing more and more that you get better. The next one was actually, I skipped a page. This was actually the next drawing that I did, and it's a combination of various different places in the resort that we were at. The bar, the seating area, the outdoor seating area. Again here, because it was only the second drawing that I did that trip, the perspective was a bit off. It's not quite the way it should be. This section is fine, and then this section is completely off, and that section is just weird. Yeah, less said about this, the better. Anyway, so let's skip back to the page that I skipped, and this was the next drawing that I did. Again, like I said, I did a pen and pencil drawing before I colored it in later on. So I had the background, as you can see here. Then I did the drawing. This was the kids' pool at the resort. And then I colored in afterwards when I was sitting and relaxing and not spending time with family. There were lots and lots of people to draw, it being a holiday place. So I picked and chose various people. These were all children, and then there was an adult watching them as well. I'm not sure why I did that line. That didn't exist, but you can see my obsession with oranges cropping up again. I did the pen drawing, and then I put in the watercolors later on. This was a fun one. I saw this guy in a flamingo lilo, a floaty, and then I saw all the other people in floaties, but then I amalgamated them all into this spread. I did also fill in the page with ultramarine blue, and I really like the way it works with the oranges and the reds as well. This was my dad and my niece and my sister playing cards. I decided not to fill this in. I just did the patterns on them, but I decided not to fill in the rest of the colors because I just liked the way the lines looked. For all of these, I was using the Tombow Fudenosuke pen. If you'd like to know all the supplies I took, I will link the Corfu travel kit video for you down below and up in the cards as well. This pen is lovely, but it doesn't have the unpredictable interrupted line that a Fude pen can give me. So although I enjoyed it, it was a little bit too regular for me. Next time I will take a fountain pen with me rather than this one. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just that I prefer the lines that a fountain pen gives me. We had a lovely massage. Again, I didn't fill it in, so I left the background as it was and just used line width in order to indicate what's in the foreground and what's in the background. There were a lot of activities. It was quite a child-friendly and activity-friendly place. So behind the pool where we were sitting, there was an archery lesson and there was a dancing lesson. So I popped in some of those features. Again, obviously they're not dog people. I just draw people as dogs. If you've not been on my channel before, that's the explanation for these. If you have, you know that I'm obsessed with dogs. Just a casual day at the beach. All the activities that were happening, kayaking and paddleboarding and chilling in lilos and jumping off the pier, reading, just, you know, pretty much all the things you do on holiday. Again, I left the line work because I preferred it. Water aerobics. I thought these people were just hilarious. Another one where just the line work speaks for itself and I don't need to add anything else. More people studies. My husband and I tried kayaking for the first time on the sea. My husband doesn't swim very well, so he was a little bit apprehensive about it, but it worked out okay. The paddles were actually heavier than we thought they were. And the Ionian Sea is exactly these two colors, so they worked out really well. And in patches, it's cobalt, and patches, it's ultramarine. It was so lovely. On the last day, we went out on a catamaran boat, and they took us to the islands of Paxos and Antipaxos. And we looked around a little town, and then we went to see some blue caves. It was a little bit scary going into the caves. I wasn't quite comfortable with that, but it was really gorgeous. The sea was blue, like blue, 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 exactly like these colors. And then we went and anchored off of a beach, and we all jumped off the boat into the sea and swam. It was absolutely glorious. We also spent most of the evenings playing cards. It was a family holiday with both my parents, my sister, her husband, her daughter, and my husband and myself. So this is pretty much an example of us playing cards, and my niece was scorekeeper. At the airport, on our way back home, I have many memories of this room because there were so many interesting people, but I didn't have time to actually draw all of them. I did what I could. And finally, I did 4 little vignettes while we were coming back in the plane. The wing of the airplane outside the window with some clouds, the outline of the land masses as we flew over them, another flight when we landed at the airport, and a luggage trolley. I don't think I finished this because it looks a little bit unfinished, but yeah, I enjoyed myself and had a great time. If you go on holiday, this kind of sketchbook is really nice to take with you because it's low pressure. When you add the colored backgrounds, it gives you a little bit of a base to work on. So you can just do a little line drawing and be satisfied with that. It looks loads better than just a plain drawing on a white background, even though that's perfectly fine as well, but just a little bit more interest in these. And I try to always use the line to incorporate where the colors are. So the orange was there, so I tried to draw the line so that that looks like a blanket or a towel or whatever it was. But yeah, so that is the little sketchbook tour. And now let me show you the other little tin that I bought. The mini Urban Sketchers watercolor set is, by the way, approved by the Urban Sketchers in Poland, Usk, Poland. One day, hopefully, I might go and see all the events and learn some lessons from the people who demonstrate there. But this comes in multiple colors. I think it's blue, gold, like a salmon pink, and one more color, which I can't remember at the moment. I ended up getting the blue because that's one of my favorite colors. But I also got a mini metal box empty. So they provide the one with the colors in it, as well as one without any colors. So the mini metal box has nothing on the back. It doesn't have any colors in. And I got it in the gold color. So when you open it, it is empty, it is blank. You can put in your own colors. It fits the same number 12 pans as the other one. And I got this because I would like to use it for gouache. So in this, I'm going to put my gouache colors, and in this I have watercolor. So when I go out sketching, these two sets are pretty compact. And if you compare it to my current gouache set, the two of them are only slightly larger together than this gouache palette. So it will be quite a space saver. There wasn't a yellow. I would have got a yellow if there was, but these are two colors that I am pretty happy with. So it's the Urban Sketchers Watercolor Set Mini and the mini metal box for 12 half pans. If you're interested in more art supplies, watch these videos next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!